Welcome back, Lion Golf Academy members, and I hope you had a great Thanksgiving and getting ready for December, setting your goals. And for those who are dealing with snow, now's a great time to work on positions and getting ready for the next season. And shout out to Jed with the Las Vegas Golf Friends. You don't know it yet, Jed, but you just sponsored this video. We'll take that $1,000 check anytime. So just send that to my P.O. box. And Doc, look what we got there for you. We got your Doc spot, so we're all ready to go. Today we're going to be talking about distance, how you get distance, and there's many ways to get distances. Of course, you can always try it this way. But that's probably going to end up in your garage at some point. So we are going to compare Tiger Woods and the great Arnold Palmer. Two vastly different swings, two vastly different ways to get power, with the educational purpose to show you where one gets the power and how they utilize it. And there's no two ways to obtain power. There's no two swings that are alike. You are all individual as a footprint. So stop listening to all these gurus out there that tell you they have a secret to this game, because there is no such thing as a golf swing secret. And most likely those gurus have never given a golf lesson in their life. So I invite anybody to come watch me give some golf lessons throughout the whole day, and you will see so many different ways to hit a golf ball and how we take care of that. And if you do like this content, hit that like and subscribe. It helps us get clubs and needy children down in South Africa. And leave a comment down below. Let me know what you're going to work on in winter times. Get those new positions and let me know your goals. Without further ado, let's take a look at how Tiger Woods and Arnold Palmer strike the golf ball with immense power and speed. Okay, so welcome. We have Tiger on the left, Arnie on the right, but hopefully you guys knew that already. What we're going to do is I've drawn a Barney purple line to show you that right hip and show you how the right leg works on both of these. And we also drew the ball position in relation to their body. You can see Tiger's golf ball is just inside his left shoulder. Arnie's golf ball is right through his head. But before we get to that, we're going to show the swing over and over again, as I did have a request to do so. And we're going to look at how their bodies work side by side, and this can help you see the difference. So visually we can see one. Arnie's swing definitely looks a little bit manufactured. It's not as smooth as Tiger's on the left side, but we'll start to break this down and we'll show you how they store up power, where they get their power from, and how it can relate to you, recognizing that both of these individuals were able to hit the ball extremely far, not only because they were strong, but because they were flexible and they used their body correctly. So let's start out by checking where the tilt is in relation to that ball position. So we're just going to take a detour straight from Tiger's right shoulder and go straight down and get it to as close as we can to 90 degrees, and do that same 90 degrees. Now we can see when we do 90 degrees from Arnie to Tiger, what we can tell is Arnie is definitely forward pressing. His lines aren't quite connecting. And let's go from the center of Tiger's shoulders right through his hands, and we can see that he does have slightly forward press. If we go from the center of Arnold's right through his hands, we can see that there is that same slight forward press. What we can tell here is, look at Arnold on the right side and look at where his hands are connected with his chest, and then we take a look at that 90-degree angle from his shoulder tilt. It is running right into his centeredness of his chest, which is very important, but it also signifies that he will have to release his hands a little bit sooner. Where Tiger on the left side, we can see the hand connection to the center of his chest, and his 90-degree angle is further behind that connection, which signifies that he needs more of a weight distribution to the left side and to drive the golf ball with his shoulders slightly more. Now let's see if that holds true for the entire swing. So what we'll do is clear up these lines. We're going to leave the golf ball placement line and our favorite Barney purple. So let's take this back. Now I want you to watch their hip action, because that's the biggest difference between these two and how they load their weight. Tiger moves his weight slightly to his right foot, where Arnie stays center, almost loses his weight to his left foot. But the biggest thing is, do they still have a one-piece takeaway? You can see how wide and connected their takeaways are. You can put a basketball in between Arnie's forearms. You can still put a basketball between Tiger's forearms, except his shoulders have not tilted as much as Arnie. They are remaining more true to his spine angle, and we can only tell this with a down the line angle, but I could not find a good down the line angle for Arnie, so we're stuck with this vision. But look at the right hip action. Once we get to the top of the swing, we can see definite shoulder tilting with Arnold and a lot of turn, because that right hip has turned and gone more towards the target. And we can see that with that space right where that right hip is getting further away from his trail hip, where if we go to the top of the swing with Tiger, we can see that right hip is also turning, but it's also slightly moving over to his right foot. So if we draw a line from the center of Tiger's chest straight down versus where Arnie's center of his chest is back here, we can see that one is ahead of the golf ball and one is behind the golf ball. So here we have Tiger doing a fairly traditional approach where I try and get my amateurs to emulate, because amateurs definitely need help with weight distribution, utilizing their body mass correctly. And we can do this by throwing a ball. You try and throw a ball like Arnold Palmer versus throwing a ball like Tiger. Tiger's motion will allow you to throw the ball further because you're utilizing correct weight transfer and your body mass. Where the one on the right side, you'll start to tip the other way. Sure, you can time the release and you can try and manufacture something, but for us that have a job, have a family, I think the one on the left side, you'll be able to utilize your body rotation and your weight distribution more efficiently. We can see that Arnold does have a little bit more shoulder tilt and turn. So if we draw where those two are connecting versus Tiger's, you can see that line is shorter because we don't see as much of this tilting action. But where you'll also notice is look how much turn Arnold got on the right side versus Tiger. Tiger was notorious for keeping his hips fairly steady while he rotated his upper body around it. So in terms of X factor, Tiger probably has more X factor, which means he is storing more potential power, where Arnold on the right side does not necessarily have as much X factor, but he is definitely utilizing his hips, and we see that. Look at his lead left leg, how much it has to break down to allow those hips to turn, and that'll also start to pivot his weighting this way, because once this left lead leg starts to break down, the upper body starts to lean towards the target. You look at Tiger's left lead leg, it has a slight subtle break, but that allows him to transfer that weight more over the golf ball. If we draw a line straight through Tiger's lead knee, straight through his hips, that center point, straight through his left shoulder, straight through his left elbow, and straight through his hands, you can see it's a fairly straight line. Now if we do the same thing with Arnold, we can try and draw a straight line through everything, but look at how much of the center is broken down. And where do they cross? We can see Tiger's is right in the center of his swing circle, where Arnold's is shifted back to the right side of his swing circle. So we see a slight bit of stack and tilt on the right side. But what is great about both swings is at the top of the swing, we can see that these clubs don't get anywhere near to parallel. So there's the top of Tiger and there's the top of Arnold. So let's draw a line showing you that that is just at parallel, and Arnold's gets above parallel even with all this shoulder turn. So again, don't get that club to parallel unless you can turn as much as the tour pros. For all of us at home that do suffer from turn, if your shoulders turn to 80 degrees, your club should look more like that. That'll help you stay more connected and move into the golf ball as one unit. So now let's take a look at the transition, because both these transitions end up fairly similar. Look at the first third as we straighten out the left leg for Arnold. He is definitely uncoiling from the ground up. So if we can break this down, we can see how much of those hips on Arnold is almost facing the camera, where Tiger's is still slightly closed because there was less he had to make up for. We can still see Tiger's Barney line is still connected, where Arnie still has this gapping here that he has to make up, but both knees have straightened out. So if we back up and take a look at the spacing of the knees and also that tilting of the knees, we can see that one is slightly more tilted, which is Arnie, but the spacing is the key because now Arnie has to make up the spacing. So watch that left leg. The left leg is going to straighten out immediately to start the downswing transition to get the lower body to try and drive into the target. Now we're at a similar position here and we take a look at the spacing. So look at how much of his leg had to get back out in front, where Tiger doesn't necessarily have that issue, and you can start to see Tiger's knees are starting to level out, which is the same as his tilting, and the same is true for Arnold. He has also established a level tilting. Now the issue with this is it's all momentum based, so you're going to see a more active lower body with Arnold. Let's keep moving forward as we start our transition. Look at how much of that right knee has to start to bend for Arnold. So now look at the tilting of his knees versus Tiger. We can see one knee is here and one knee is there, so there's still less tilting going on. So you can effectively say that Arnold had more of a rocking motion while he turned a lot, where Tiger established a more X factor but did not have to rock as much, and that all stemmed from ball position. But if you take a look at the Barney purple line, we can see some spacing spacing between both hips, so they both wound up in the same similar position here. They got there differently. Hands are in a similar position, but again, this is all based on ball position. So we see how much forward his hands were pressing. And I know that this camera is a little bit jittery, so it might be fluttering a little bit, where Tiger's hands are still behind the golf ball. And from this point, it's going to straighten and push up to that left lead hip, where if Arnold straightens and pushes up, he will essentially miss the ball, so he has to stay more down. So let's clean some of these lines and watch the knees. Look at Arnold, his right knee is still flexed, where Tiger starts to straighten up. And now this is where Tiger got most of his power from, is his leg action is driving more up at this point, thrusting all that stored up power through his legs out in front of that center point. And this is a great position for Tiger, because look at all that amount of shoulder tilt. He still keeps his hands in front of his chest and can release that golf ball somewhat naturally while his lower body's going up. And we need that excess of tilt because of the slight forward press at address. Right side of the screen, we're going to see some tilt on the right side as well. It's very hard to see the club head here, but you remember the golf ball positions where that green line is, so he's probably made contact already, and we see more of a quicker release at this point because of his ball position was all the way to his right side, so his hands had to get more involved. But if you take a look post impact, look at that left elbow, so he cannot break down that left side, because if he does, that ball's rope hooking. So again, this is a manufactured motion, and if you take a look at these two positions, we see that right shoulder still remaining down. Tiger's is leveled out because that left hip can drive through the target as a result of him pushing up, where there is less pushing up here, which leaves a responsibility on this area of the golf swing to hold that triangle while his hands get involved. So if he breaks down that left side of the triangle with his hands involved too much, that ball's going way left. And follow through, you'll be able to see, look at the amount of rotation that is being absorbed by Arnold Palmer. Look at the posture when we finish. We can see Tiger is matching where that ball position was, where Arnold is so far ahead of that golf ball position, he is leaning more this way. So we have brute force on the right side versus strength and rotation and speed on the left side. That's not to say that Arnold didn't have strength, rotation, and speed, but you can see how they use their body mechanics differently. And I attribute this most likely to the equipment and most notably the shaft. If you look at the fluttering of the shafts that Palmer had to play, it definitely flutters a lot more than what Tiger got to play with. But I hope that helps you, and I hope it helps you recognize that speed and power is different for everybody. Do not fall for the dreaded secret of golf that's out there. There is no such thing as a secret. The only secret is through talent, dedication, work ethic, and realistic goals. Hope that helps you. See you next time. Fairways and green.